So Howard, we're talking about the data protection market. What are the drivers behind the growth of the data protection industry?
Well, Julia, many people have heard about the 25th of May in respect of the GDPR coming into force, and that has been a major driver. But it's not just the GDPR, you've also got things such as the PECR, which is the Electronic Communications Regulation as to how you communicate with people electronically and how you store data there. There's ISO 27001, which is for Information Systems Management, and obviously the new Data Protection Act of 2018. So there's lots of regulatory compliance about at the moment, and also people are demanding of their suppliers, please keep my data safe. So there's also an upsurge in demand from people whose data has been lost.
You target the SME market. What is the market opportunity?
There are 6 million SMEs in the United Kingdom. Not only do we target them, but we also target schools, charities and churches, all of whom need help, and they're all in their own way SMEs. So the market opportunity is great for us. The regulation industry and the IT security industry has largely overlooked the SME space, and what you get is people gathering enormous amounts of data around GDPR, and if you go online there are plenty of websites that will mislead you as well as guide you. But the challenge for the small businessman is very simple in the fact that he or she has to then take all this information and turn it into meaningful policies and procedures to allow them to demonstrate compliance. Not only is this time consuming, which means they're not working on the business, it's also difficult, and also if they're not working on the business, expensive.
So obviously everybody's talking about Brexit, so how will Brexit affect the data protection space?
Well, it shouldn't affect the data protection space, to be honest with you, because first and foremost, the politicians are talking about a transition and interim period and interim agreements. So for the next few years, till at least 2021, most of the legislation will stay in place. The DPA 2018 will stay anyway, because that's a UK law. GDPR will be around for 2 or 3 years, and I can't really imagine the UK government suddenly throttling back and saying we'll slacken the rules on the protection of people's data. If anything, they're more likely to tighten it. So the future for data protection and regulation is very strong.
So Howard, we hear so much about GDPR. Why is it so important?
You've heard many stories about data losses, people's identity being stolen. You hear about people complaining that their data's been passed to third parties, all these telephone calls you get about motor accidents you never actually had and random phone calls, and it's because data was being sold or illegally passed to third parties. One of the parts of the GDPR is to stop this transfer of information to third parties and to stop the abuse of your data. It also encourages companies to take seriously how they look after your data, how long they keep your data, and how they keep your data accurate. And GDPR is so important in this respect because now you have the right, as you may have heard, to be forgotten. So if a company, you've finished dealing with them, your contract with them has ended, unless for a warranty period for a product you may have bought, you have the right to be forgotten. So you can ask them to remove your details. You can also ask them to amend your details if the information they have on you is wrong. And you do this through something called a data subject access request. The GDPR gives power to the people in respect of their personal data.
So Howard, what if a business is non-compliant?
First of all, Julia, obviously non-compliance is not recommended, but there are businesses out there who may not be fully compliant or non-compliant at all. One of the parts of GDPR compliance, for example, is that you have something called a breach management plan. And so should you lose some data, be that an inadvertent email send or a hack from an outside source, you have a plan in place as to how you respond to that incident, how you communicate that information to your customers, and also what steps you should take if you do need to report the matter to the Information Commissioner's office. You don't always have to. What you're trying to do with any regulatory compliance is demonstrate that you have thought the matter through and you have policies and procedures in place to help you to protect your business, to protect your customers' data. It doesn't follow with GDPR compliance that you necessarily won't lose some data. If somebody wants to steal from you, they will steal from you. The main part of this is to make sure that if they do, you have processes and procedures in place to understand what happened, how to prevent it happening again, and also how you will communicate the breach to the people affected by it, because one of the cornerstones of the GDPR is the rights and freedoms of the EU subjects. In other words, you and I and everyone around us.